this video is just sort of my rambling thoughts on the increased interest of many Americans to move outside of the US in the event that Donald Trump becomes the president. And I don't even want to say his name because I don't even want to promote it anymore. Like, I just don't want to even put his name in my mouth and that energy out there. Like, I don't. Anyway, so I know a lot of people, from what I've been reading, have been, that's sort of been the conversation. If he becomes president, I would move, outside of the US, or I would, I heard that moving to Canada was a hashtag or something like that. It was a trending topic on Twitter, like maybe after, Super Tuesday. And so, I guess my immediate thoughts have just been like, okay, fly, really? So my immediate thoughts, I just find it so interesting, like the way life is, because I remember back in like 2007, I was like 23 years old. I was working like for NBC News Washington. That was also for MSNBC actually as well, and in Washington DC, their Washington bureau. And I was pretty like, I really enjoyed working there, but I was like, not 100% like fulfilled with the experience in terms of some of my coworkers, and just sort of like the tone for Black people, I would say, at that newsroom. I was young. It was eye-opening in terms of, some of the realities of corporate America, the realities of working in broadcast news as a Black person. And so I was not really that into it. And it sort of also pushed me into becoming more race conscious and more race aware. And so like, I remember at the time, and even like, years later, like up until even when I came to Namibia, people sort of, there were a couple of people like in my circle that I think felt that I was too race conscious. You know what I mean? And that's sort of how I was raised anyway, like I realized that I was raised to be like very aware and very open and not sort of shunning from calling a spade and from talking about issues as it related specifically to Black Americans, to African Americans, whatever you want to call them. I'm not getting into that debate. I refuse to enter that debate. I know this is a sidebar, but I'm just not ever going to do it because I don't care. If you want to call yourself Black American, fine. I like African American. It doesn't really matter, like in the grand scheme of life. Like what matters is your actions. If you want to be in Africa, like do that. Like I don't care what you call me. Like I'm just living my life and I'm here. And that's all that matters. Like there are such bigger issues than like playing semantics. So anyway, like when I think back to when I was like 23 and working in broadcast news, and like what happened was when I was 23, my mother passed away while I was working for NBC News. Very suddenly, from something called deep vein thrombosis. And she was 52 years old. She was an amazing, phenomenal woman, literally like my best friend, just a major source of like guidance in my life, as most people's mothers are. And I was working at NBC. She passed away very suddenly, like I was like, sort of like at the height of like, like just really in my 20s and like living on my own in Washington DC, like really enjoying that like life of, like that young professional life. I was really enjoying it. I was, successful, like doing well at my job. And then she passed away in April of 2007. And one of my closest friends and I, who also worked at NBC, is also African American, we had a trip planned to go to Barbados, and that trip we ended up having to like sort of postpone it, like when my mom passed away. But basically like in July, she passed away in April. In July, we decided, no, we're still gonna go. Was it June? It was like the end of June, July. So we were still gonna go to Barbados. As you guys know, my mother's side of the family is from Barbados, and so that's how I am familiar with the country. And so we ended up going there in July, had a phenomenal experience, did not want to come back to the US, did not want to come back to work, to NBC or anything like that. And we, we went for like maybe 2.5 weeks. It was right before their carnival, which is like called Crop Over. We had to come back and carnival was just like about to start. It was like so depressing, like looking at the airplane and like leaving the island. It was just like, I can't even do it. Like we have to go back there. So we flew back, and like I basically ended up like, I was hooked, you know what I mean? Like the travel bug had bitten me. Like I was like, I'm bored with the US, like Barbados was awesome. Being in a black country was awesome. Being around people that looked like you was amazing, and now I'm back here like in corporate America, like dealing with these like microaggressions and, just a lot of stuff that I dealt with when I worked there. And sidebar, like I just think it's so interesting, like also what happened with Melissa Harris Perry. Because coming from the same, network, I think maybe she was based out of New York. I'm not sure which bureau she was based out of, but, I know my experience it was very eye-opening, I would say, just in terms of race relations and corporate America and things like that. So we came back to the US. I had the travel bug, had bitten me, and basically I ended up going back to Barbados in December of that year. Like my time at NBC was coming to an end anyway, because I sort of had like a 18-month position. And so I went back to Barbados. My grandmother was living there, and like lived it up, you know what I mean? Like I did some volunteering. I ended up having to come back though, after about a year or so, because my dad's mother developed pancreatic cancer and there was really no one to take care of her. And so that's, what I kind of had to do basically. So, again, I was still like, man, like I don't really see where I fit in here in America. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't really see like a career path that really worked for me. I wasn't interested in news anymore, or television news anymore. I wanted to be abroad, So it was, always still on my mind. And like my grandmother ended up passing away, and, here I was like, okay, I guess I could get back on the path of figuring out like how to get back abroad, but this time I want to go to Africa. And that's sort of how I ended up in Namibia. And throughout this whole time, like there really wasn't anyone in my life that understood like that I could really like identify with in terms of someone else that wanted to literally move out of the United States. I was like 25, 26. Like I didn't know anyone that, especially black, that was like willing to do it. You know what I mean? Like really like gonna take a leap of faith and like do it with me. Like I was totally by myself, like in all of my researching and all of my interests in terms of wanting to move abroad. I was also, like, I know a lot of people also have over the years probably felt I was very, too race conscious, you know what I mean? And like, I have a few friends, that I've always been able to speak openly with, about like race related things. But I know like back then, like 2008, 9, 10, people were not as vocal as they are today about like black things. And it is refreshing, to see so many people openly on social media, just like putting it all out there. Like I was kind of doing that like from a while back, but like people definitely like shunned that. People were still tiptoeing back then, and many of them still are, but I wasn't like that, and I wasn't raised that way either. And so I just find it interesting, like how things have panned out, because now people are talking about, they want to like possibly leave the country. People are very vocal as it relates to, race and, issues of that nature. And so, again, like my grandmother passed away, and I, continued my research, and I found this program called World Teach, and I applied to their Namibia program because I knew I wanted to be, of course, on the African continent. There was a Rwanda program, there was a Tanzania program. The Rwanda program, I wasn't that comfortable at the time. I had my own misconceptions. I felt like, you know, based on their, you know, the issues that Rwanda had in terms of the genocide and things like that, like that would not be the place for me, although they were not dealing with like, you know, that like at that time. But I just had it, you know, in my mind that that probably wouldn't be a safe place for me, so I did not apply to the Rwanda program. Then there was the Tanzania program, which I had missed the deadline for. So I did a little bit of research about Namibia. I saw it was right above South Africa, you know, sort of interconnected histories with South Africa in terms of apartheid. And I felt like, you know, South Africa in my mind was a, you know, a good place to be near. So that's how I ended up applying to the Namibia program and being in Namibia, and the rest is history. That was 2010 and now it's 2016. And so I just, you know, I say all that to say, like, you really have to like be true to yourself, go against the grain, go against the unconventional. For those of us, you know, for those of you that really want to live outside the country, I like even saw an article the other day, like, or this week, that was like, I guess sort of like, to me a bit condescending, but it was saying like, you know, I think the headline was, just because like, you know, like people are searching, you're searching, you're talking about you want to move outside the US, but you know you're not going anywhere. It was like that. I was like, wow, like that's such like a jerky thing to say, like shut up, you know what I mean? Like who are you to tell anybody like what they want to do? And maybe people won't like really like make that move, but let them enjoy their, you know, let them have their moment, let them figure out what they want to do, like whatever. But in the face of, you know, silly articles or nobody really understanding your passion for wanting to move outside of the country, you know, in the face of you feeling like you just have this strong interest in a certain region of the world, you know, just in the face of feeling like everybody else is, you know, seemingly keeping up with the Joneses, and meanwhile, you know, or everybody else is going right and you want to go left, be true to yourself, you know, and follow like your interests and what you want to do. And I really think that's important because that's what I did. You know, I do want to be clear that moving abroad is, moving to any country on the African continent is certainly not a utopia. It's certainly not perfect. Everybody will not like you. You will go on a roller coaster, you know what I mean? Like, of emotions, of cultural adjustments. I've been here for like 5, you know, like almost 6 years, and it's like ups and downs, you know, ups and downs. It's definitely not perfect. But that's like, still like everybody has their own individual path. And so if, you know, a possible Trump presidency is like what pushes you to maybe, you know, make that move, fine, you know, so be it. Like, bottom line to me is like, just be true to yourself, because I definitely remember like, you know, when nobody was, you know, there weren't that many people openly, black people openly talking about moving abroad or talking about racial issues. And now those are like, you know, really hot topics, you know, and I remember feeling like at 23, 24, 25, 26, like just so like, you know, a bit alone, you know, in what I wanted to do. And I would see everybody else like had their jobs and their careers, and I had to take like a bit of a career break, you know, to take care of my grandmother, or, you know, like just various things. Like I was not, my like the path to success, the ladder to success, I guess you could say, that I thought I was supposed to be taking, you know, that one that's sort of ingrained in all of us, like graduate from high school, go to college, get a job, you know, get that promotion, you know, get the salary increase, like that supposed, you know, straight road to success. Like it wasn't existing for me. And I was just looking around, and everybody, like all of my peers seemed to be like, they were just moving in that direction. And I'm just sitting here like, no, like I don't want to be in the US. Like I'm bored with America. I'm bored. I don't like corporate America. There's too many games that go on there. People getting, you know, people are here getting promotions. Like when I was 23 working at NBC, like this is how I viewed things. I saw white kids that were not doing as much work as me, not working as hard as me, getting promoted. You know, that old boys club or whatever they call it is so real. And I was seeing that at 23. And I was like, nah, I'm not your mule. You know what I mean? Like that hashtag, like I'm not gonna sit here and bust my butt, you know, and like, for what? You know what I mean? Like be stressed out, like it just like coming to work every day. It's this cold, like, you know, corporate, like American environment. people making jokes that you just don't even find funny. You know what I mean? Like that, that entire like vibe of corporate America, like it wasn't working for me, you know. And I went on this like chance trip to Barbados as an adult with a friend, and it like blew my mind and like opened my eyes up to so many possibilities. And so I had to take like a solo like, you know, route like to like expand my experience to beyond the US borders. And so like whatever your, you know, reasons are for wanting to move abroad, I say go for it. Don't let anybody, you know, don't let loneliness or you being the only person that has these interests be a deterrent from you making the steps that you want to make. And again, it's not, I know it's not necessarily a 1, 2, 3, you know, thing to just get up and move, you know what I mean? Like, but like there are baby steps that you can take, definitely baby steps, like to get to that point. And I don't even think, you know, a college degree is necessarily, you know, a deterrent. Like if you don't have one, that you cannot move to the continent and that you don't have anything to offer and that it doesn't have anything to offer you. Like I don't agree with that. Like I think that if you have an interest as an African American and you really want to live here, you can definitely make it happen. And so with that being said, I have a website. I'm not sure how many of you are aware of it. It's been listed in the description box of each video. I just basically did like a revamping, a relaunching of it, and it's AA in Africa. The AA is for African American, but it's AAinAfrica.com. Again, the link is now in the description box. I've revamped it, so I have a new website address, which is the one I just told you. And what I've been doing, you know, for the past couple of years is putting up profile interviews. I interview African Americans that are living on the continent of Africa. And so please, you know, check out my website because there are stories, encouragement, advice, resources, experiences of African Americans that are, you know, living on the African continent. And you can read about how they did it. And it seems to me like the majority of the stories, I mean, it's people taking unconventional routes to get outside of the US, to move outside of the US. You know what I mean? Like going against the grain, going against what society deems you should be doing and things like that. And so you can be encouraged, and if moving outside of the US is something that you really want to do, just to see that it is possible, and maybe you can pick up some advice from one person that I've interviewed, because I've done interviews with people with African Americans living in Kenya, Nigeria, Rwanda, another African American living in Namibia, Tanzania. There's a story I'm getting ready to post on the website to publish African American in Morocco. I hope I'm not leaving anyone out, but you know, North Africa, West Africa, East Africa, Southern Africa. I have interviews up there with various African Americans that are living across the continent, and I also, aside from publishing interviews with African Americans on the continent, I also am starting to write my own articles, just going into more detail than I can maybe go into in a YouTube video about various topics and things like that. So you can also find articles from me. It's just so you guys know it is possible. We are here. You know, we're not just visiting, we are living on the continent, and it is very possible. You don't have to necessarily, you know, why limit yourself to Canada? Why limit yourself to, you know, the UK or to Mexico, which is right? No, like you can possibly get all the way down here. It's like we're doing it. You know what I mean? So that's just my little like sort of PSA. Again, my website is linked in the description box of this video, AAinAfrica.com. Please check it out if you didn't know about it, because I know I really haven't talked about it much on the channel, but it is there, and there are stories from those of us who are currently here on the continent, so be inspired. Okay guys,